This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
Nancy Richards.
And
So,
welcome back, Nancy. How are you feeling?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Um, I've had the flu all week, and I I got a flu shot. So apparently this would have been a lot worse. But I've been out all week, and I have COPD, so any lung thing, I always have to take. I have to tread very lightly because I'm more afraid that it'll go to pneumonia or and yeah, I was out and I was supposed to go back to work today, but I took one more day. I still was I'm still wheezing. I still have a little problem breathing, and I just wanted to feel a little more healthier because I'm gonna now go right back into a sea of, going to go into school. So,
It's a germ pit. Every school's a germ pit, mine included. And actually, like I said earlier, you were like the seventh person I know with the flu, in the past like 2 weeks. And so
yeah.
it's definitely go around and definitely get your shots. Uh I had heard from a student that she had had her shots too, and that, it would have been worse, like a fever and all that, if she hadn't gotten the shots. So definitely get your shots.
Yeah, I didn't really have much of a fever, but the only reason why I knew I had the flu was because I took one of those COVID flu tests and it came back negative. I felt more like I might have had COVID, and it came back negative for COVID, but type A flu, whatever. There was a B, A, and a B. So,
We're
like, all right,
alphabetizing them now.
I know. So it's out there, and I'm still taking it slow.
Well, that's
Thanks.
well, that's good. And we're in the thick of really cold season now. We've had our blankets on these last few episodes, and
Freezing out.
it's
It's freezing.
here we are again, here with my hoodie and my blanket. So,
Yes.
um, and interesting things have happened over the last couple of days, locally, internationally, nationally, that we definitely have to get into. But the first thing is kind of a hyper local story. One of my favorite restaurants, actually, the Panini Grill, here on Staten Island on Forest Avenue, they have a very large social media presence, just to put it into context for people. And they do a series of skits all the time about different things. And, I knew that the owners were kind of Trumpy. I knew that because of
Well,
their,
it's Forest Avenue.
well, I know, but they were also, I just knew because when the vaccination requirements came around in the later part of COVID in 2021, they were very resistant to even the
Oh,
idea of having the vaccines be a thing. And they were vocal about that then. And then about a year later, they had Nicole Maliotakis as a guest in their restaurant. They named it Panini after her. I was pissed off at them for that. But I managed to forgive them for that because, as a local business, it's hard to avoid, the local congressperson. And
yeah.
I sort of cut them a little bit of slack for that. But over the last few days, there was actually a skit that they posted. It's since been removed. It's since been taken down. A friend of ours here, Laura Corda from the Staten Island Action Coalition, she was the one who sent it to me. And there was a skit where the boss, and if you've been to the Bignini Grill, you know who I'm talking about. He's all over the place there. Um, he is browbeating different employees about working over the weekend or working on the holiday. And he goes through a series of skits with that. And then finally he gets to the kitchen workers who he says, "Oh, are we working on over the weekend or am I calling ICE?" Which, understandably people found offensive, myself included. Um,
Absolutely.
it's not something to make light of. And just, what really pissed me off, not only the joke and the contents of the joke itself, but there were also members of the kitchen staff in that video. And so to me, not only are you making kind of a joke that's not funny, but you're also putting people in danger over it. And because, I don't know what that person's status is, the one that was in the video with him. But even just a person of color is enough to attract these fascists to come
Yeah,
after
to
them. And
pull
so,
people over.
yeah, so I don't, I'm not, oh, I don't want anybody to be in any kind of danger, especially for a stupid joke. But I said I made a comment publicly on Friday about it on my Facebook page. I posted it to the Left in the Forgotten Borough Instagram account about the fact that, the fact that they would make this joke really kind of breaks my heart. Just, my history of with Panini Grill. I've spent so many holidays there, so many occasions there, a lot of memorable moments. And, when people show you who they are like this, it's hard to unsee. Uh, and
So,
and so
okay.
I was really heartbroken. But the good thing, as I was saying before we came on, is that it seemed to attract a lot of attention, and our reaction as a podcast seemed to attract a lot of attention, based on what I saw online. But what were you going to say, Nance?
You said it, they were disappointed. Is it to an extent where you will not use their business again, or
I'm
maybe?
sort of contemplating what the next steps are for at least my end, and I encourage anybody to, if they feel like that's the best course of action for them, they could. I've personally never been the kind of person who's sort of, just going to cast people aside and that's it. And I think we've done that for a long time as it relates to Trump and anything related to Trump and anything related to his cruelty. We've tried, cutting people off and doing all that, and it hasn't worked. He's back, he's back. And so I don't know how much of that has worked necessarily. And so I'm going to take some time to think it over, but for right now, I'll just stick with Jody's and Kettle Black and, some of the other places nearby.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, Forest Avenue is more closer to your home as far as I don't frequent there often, but I've been there a few times. So it's not a place I always go, so it's not going to impact me. I didn't like what it was. Did they offer an apo I know they took it down and they
Hmm.
said they were sorry. But I did see some comments about this situation, like, oh, it was a joke. And once again, my reaction to people when they say things like that, not necessarily the people who own Panini Grill, but just people who say this in general, oh, it was supposed to be funny. And I say, jokes are supposed to be funny. If it's not funny, it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Um, And so there it is. It wasn't funny. It wasn't a funny skit. Um, and I know that people do jokes, they cross lines. I don't have problems with things like that. Like, as a comedian, sometimes you have to, push the boundaries, and sometimes it could be controversial. Um, that's okay, but it wasn't funny. There's a lot of people right now who, especially the fact that it's happening now on Staten Island and that ICE is here and abducting people. I just felt it was in poor taste. Um, so I'm hoping they really mean it when they took down, like, sorry, didn't realize it. We'll see.
Well,
We'll see.
they did actually, they did post an apology. They did post an apology video, and uh, it was, the guy who's the owner, I don't know his name, but and then the person that was in the video with him in the initial video was also in this apology video. Somebody made the point of saying it looked like a hostage video, but but I don't know. I don't know what the true intent was. They did post an apology, but I think a lot of, the damage was done. And again, when somebody shows you who they are in that way, it's hard to unsee. And so we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Um,
I would
I
have said, hey, if you're not going to work this weekend, I'm going to make you, your next shift, I'm going to make you work the cheese roll thing.
Yeah,
That thing where they bring out the
they roll it
cheese?
out. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't work this weekend, you're the one who's going to have to do the cheese thing.
Yeah,
That looks, yeah,
that looks
that
good. That
was
looks
brutal. I
yeah.
don't know.
It
I'm
looks
not a fan of people who like, oh, look, I'm going to melt cheese in front of you. Uh, I'm
I
like,
do.
oh,
I'm sort of a gringo in the way that I enjoy when they make I enjoy at the Mexican places when they make the guacamole in front of me.
like guac is different. Guac is
Yeah.
delicious. So
I like the guac. I like when they do that. I don't, do they still do that at Maisel? They used to all the time, but I don't know if they
yeah,
can do that now.
yeah, 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 they bake their own. It's delicious.
I love,
So
I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. But but anyway, I'm profoundly disappointed in the people at Panini Grill because, like, as I said, for me, it's been kind of a staple of the neighborhood. I've gone there, for so many occasions. I spent a
yeah,
couple.
you like that place. That's your place.
Yeah, I I spent a few birthdays there. My parents' anniversary one year. We do a lot there, and we have to see, what's going to happen.
Well, you
Mhm.
could go across the street to Burrito Bar where they,
We love them too. Yeah,
well, the Burrito Bar is very good in the community and they do a lot of good things for the community and they're always there. I always see them down at Makerspace, like those events and holding different events in their backyard. So, you know what? I
we got
support people who
options.
support what what you value. And
Yeah.
if you want, I don't even, I'm also someone who doesn't cut people off like forever. I'm not really good at that, as you know. Um,
Mhm.
but take a step back for a moment and think about it.
Yeah, that's how I'm handling it. And if people feel, because I got a lot of comments on my post initially on Facebook and on our social media page. Oh, I'm never going there again. Never, definitely, that's your right. Do it if you want. I have to just see, what's, kind of how I want to handle it. But I agree with you about Burrito Bar, and we love Andrew and Kim.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
But the question, that makes me think about where you eat. Like, do you not go? I was at a place, another place on Forest Avenue for a birthday party, and um, a family member of mine texted me and said, "How dare you give that person business? They're right wing, blah, blah, blah." And I had no idea the restaurant's politics. And I
Right.
was invited to a birthday party there. It wasn't like I chose the restaurant, but, it made me think about some of the people that they said that they supported. And I'm like, well, maybe make me think twice in the future. I mean, the restaurant was okay. It wasn't like, I have to go back. But do you find that when you and I, we've gone out to eat often. Do you think about the politics behind the restaurant when you go in, or
If it's really obvious, I mean there was one place that I told you, not long ago, and a friend of ours worked there. I won't name the establishment, but when I saw when I saw a cross with an American flag draped over it, I pretty much knew what the politics were there. But for me, I don't think, and I've thought a lot about this since last year, since Trump was reelected. I don't think that, cutting people off, and it depends on the issue. I mean, if there's somebody who's just kind of overtly racist or whatever, or violent or something like that, then that's a different
yeah,
story. But
yeah,
I don't think that cutting people off or maybe dismissing people offhand because of politics has necessarily gotten us anywhere. I mean, we did that in the first Trump term. We did that in the Biden years. We said, especially after January 6th, we're cutting these fucking people off. We're not having anything to do with them. And it didn't work. He's back. And so I think that, we have to maybe, depending on the issue and the severity of it, we have to give people grace. I said this a couple of weeks ago about Marjorie Taylor Greene, that uh, not that I'm all in on her just at all, but I think if somebody is willing to, say that they've been lied to, or that even though they may have different politics on certain things, and, uh, we have to embrace imperfect allies in some cases, but I also don't think casting people aside has done very much for us. He's back.
right, true.
And
But if you go down, I mean, I'm just thinking, saying Forest Avenue in general, it's gotten a lot more conservative politically,
yes,
and also a lot of the establishments. There's a few places I go visit because, friends work there, and I want to support them, and and also it's a place that I grew up, but I know that a lot of the people that walk in there, if I ever really had a political conversation with a few people, it wouldn't be pleasant. But I don't cut the place off. Um, and the person who owns, people are they're generally good people. And but if they support things that, go against, uh, like you said, like a racist thing or things like that, no, I'm not gonna.
And I was, like I said, during the first Trump term and, during the Biden years, I was much more quick to say, go fuck yourself. I'm not, talking to you. But now I have, I'm thinking since last year, since Trump has gotten back into power, I've just sort of rethought that and thought, well, that really hasn't worked for us. And so, perhaps we need to, change our approach. Not that we can't call a spade and say that these things
Right.
are not cruel or whatever, but I think we have to, maybe offer grace where we can and perhaps find more common ground where we can. I was going to text you about this, but Frank Morano has been saying and doing things that I actually agree with. So I was like, maybe we should have him on. Maybe one day we'll have him on because he's talking about regulating AI. He's talking about things that a lot of progressives are for, and which is interesting. And I think I've been sort of looking for ways to thread the needle like that between where we stand our ground and where potentially we could talk.
I don't know. I might need a minute on that. So
Yeah. Well, I was saying to somebody, I said, I'm open to having him on, but I have to check with Nancy about that. But like,
I don't know. I don't know. It depends on what we were going to discuss with him. But yeah, definitely. I'd rather have a few other Republicans on before, but
well,
we'll see.
he seems to be the most of the elected officials anyway. He seems to be the most, he seems more closely aligned to a lot of our priorities, but I don't know. And so we'll see how he does.
Seemed like
And
that when he was running for council, and I was
oh,
listening to his platform. So
yeah, he was, but when he's talking about regulating AI, he's actually going against the Trump administration and major Republicans by doing that because Trump just issued this executive order preventing states from
well, good for him.
regulating AI. So he's actually at odds with Trump and a lot of the Republican
Well,
Party.
right now he's still defeated, I thought, the better candidate
Well,
for
yes,
city
yes,
council. So
absolutely. So we have to lick our wounds a little more, maybe
yeah.
over that. But as it relates to the Panini Girl, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not ruling anything out, but
Yeah,
and
I mean, they
if the
have their right-wing platforms, so
yeah, they have it all. So if
it's not Bridge the Gap podcast.
no, it's not. It's not. But I like I said, I don't think that totally cutting people and businesses and things like that off has done very much for us as far as
No, I think we should focus more on things that promote our platform as so I, I think we've spent enough time talking about Panini Grill.
yes. Yeah, we have. And so we'll see what happens. And, owner, if you want to come on and, make your case, we're here. And so Nancy's like, no. Well,
Yeah, I mean he took it down. It's just think like I don't want a 20-minute story of I didn't mean to. It's like, okay, whatever.
yeah.
Bad choice, bad decision. All right. That's it.
Yeah.
Move on. Next. Make a
Uh,
better video.
yeah. And but we have a lot of other really more horrible and pressing stories around the world and internationally and here at home. We had yet another school shooting at Brown
Right.
University.
We've had three major violent acts happen in the news: the shootings in Bondi Beach in Australia, and then the killing of the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife, all like in a 24-hour span. And not to mention, I'm sure there's many other murders and violent acts that happen in this country as well, but those three got the major media attention today.
Yeah, well, what was really, there's a lot of things that were heartbreaking about all those stories, but one of the things that I found really just jarring was when I think it was MSNBC, they were interviewing one of the survivors of the Brown University shooting, and it was somebody who had, this is their second school shooting in their lives. This is the second one. I think she had survived Parkland. And so this is the second shooting in less than a decade.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
that's so jarring to me. I don't know. That was
it is jarring to me. I posted something on my Facebook stories. I don't know if you saw it, of like a live footage of students like hovering in a library and then the police coming in
I
and then
saw
they,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And I watched it. It just disturbed me. I mean, I can imagine being there, but um like this has become the norm, and this doesn't happen, because this happened at Brown, but this is the norm. It's like hover, shelter in place. We have shelter drills, shelter in place, and then you have this hands up evacuation process, wait for the police to come in, listening to the door bang. It was disturbing. But we don't need a ban on assault rifles. And then in the next thing that I posted in my stories, we watched for the course of the last 50 years the rise in gun violence compared to other industrialized countries. And at one point, the US was kind of at par with, and we then naturally, after assault rifles were no longer banned, you saw this skyrocket jump. Um, and my friend was just here from Denver and she was, mentioning, just the a level amount of mass shootings
Well,
in
and well, Colorado, I mean, has had its share. Columbine,
She
Littleton,
lives in Aurora. I mean,
Aurora.
we went to
Yeah.
that movie theater. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember that, but
I
we were in
remember.
the movie theater, not when it happened, but
Yeah.
I remember we were watching the movie. She goes, "Oh, by the way," and I'm like, how am I supposed to watch a movie now? Like,
Yeah,
so,
it's sort of, I don't know if hallowed ground is the right way to putting it, but it's, there's definitely some meaning there. And yeah, I think, you know, I think just for our listeners, I'm sure most of our listeners know this, but from 1994 to 2004, we did have an assault weapons ban in this country. And
yeah.
and that's not to say that there weren't any shootings, but they were far less than what we expected. It's almost the norm now to expect one or two of these things, in a news cycle. But I think that was a big mistake that George W. Bush, who everybody loves so much now because he's not an asshole like Donald Trump is, but George W. Bush allowed that assault ban to expire. So did congressional Republicans at the time. And this is what it's brought us. This is what it has given us. Where you can't go to church or a nightclub or a movie theater or to school without worrying if you're going to get mowed down by weapons of war. It's disgraceful that we've allowed this for so long.
And now it's starting to happen, mass shootings in other countries. We're Australia. I mean, what happened on Bondi Beach, um, at the start of Hanukkah. Um, this whole they was it an anti-Semitic attack because it happened on Hanukkah, or was there a group of Jewish people that were at the beach that were targeted? I didn't quite understand what made it anti-Semitic. Was it because it was on Hanukkah?
Well,
Like,
I think it was a celebration of one of the nights of
so there was
Hanukkah.
something happening at the beach,
Yeah.
and then someone opened fire on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, and then if we look in New York City, the rise in anti-Semitic attacks.
Hmm.
Um, it um, it's complicated. This it's the level of violence that people are willing to just be out of frustration, out of um, ignorance, out of evil. I don't know, give me the adjective.
Well, I
But
think
whatever
there's
mental
like,
illness, I mean,
yeah, well, I think it's a combination of factors. I think for one, people are now much more isolated than they've ever been. There's not a whole lot of community level experiences that take place now. Everything is all online, everything is more isolated. And I think that that in combination with mental illness, makes people think that, whatever they see is real, and that there's an immediate and urgent threat that they have, that only they can solve, that only they can do it. And the way that they do it is with violence. And, there's been an increase in anti-Semitic incidents, globally around the world. Uh, and by the way, while we certainly condemn anti-Semitism, criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic. Criticizing the Israeli government is not
no,
anti-Semitic.
but
Yeah, and
taking a gun and
yes,
shooting up an
absolutely.
event is that's
Absolutely.
definitely.
Definitely. But
Um,
I've seen people online in the reactions to this, the ultra Zionists who are saying, that any criticism of Israel is what led to this, and that's not true. This is
we don't know what, we had it was a father-son, I believe,
yes, yes.
that
It was like a duo who uh they were radicalized at some point. And so, and I think, for the folks who are trying to make this a Jewish versus Muslim thing, it was a Muslim man who stopped the gunman.
right.
And
So I
so,
saw that footage.
yeah, and
So
and so we shouldn't turn this. I've seen just a lot of people for their own purposes turn this into uh going into the, what I like to call the suffering Olympics, which group suffers more and who's the cause of it. And so basically, the ultra Zionists say every criticism of Israel is what causes things like this. And then the people who are on, the more Palestinian point of view, they say, well, this is bad, but not as bad as Gaza. And so people have used it.
Gaza is bad too. It's
Yes. Well,
like
people,
it, Gaza is bad. What happened in Bondi Beach is bad. It's like you said, it's not a competition,
no, that's what
Like
that's what the reactions are giving. That's what the reactions are
you shouldn't be
giving.
getting a gun and opening fire on someone at the beach, going to a celebration for like sorry, like Luigi Mangione, is as hot as, like they were like
Mm,
he shouldn't be taking a gun and just
mm.
wiping out, a man because of the healthcare issue. It's just, if you look at I'm looking at radical left history in regards to, if you look at like people who took things to the next level, like the Weathermen who began, like bombing like certain, or like, the anarchist bombings like at the turn of the century, like when they felt like they couldn't resort to protests anymore, they had to now resort to violence. Um, are we at this point again where people feel that um, their their voices aren't heard, or they have no recourse in of change, that the only change that they can go about is through violence? Because if we're at that point, you know, that is sad. Um, and I don't think we are. I think some people think, um, but
Well, I think they do because I think it's a failure of the political process. I mean, there's just on whatever issue you're talking about, whether
look at the
it's all,
failure of our Congress to
yeah,
get anything done.
yeah,
So
there's just nonstop gridlock on any issue that you can name. And so I think the it increases people's feelings of frustration, and so they turn to radical content
which
that
is, radical could be ideology, but radical also means by the method. And, method could be, I, I've been around a lot of people with radical left politics, but they're not getting a gun and killing someone. They
no.
have, they just their method of how to change is not that method. But there are some people who do believe that, and radical right as well. So,
Well, I mean,
um,
biggest provocateur of political violence is the president of the United States. He does it over and over and over again. And, in too many instances really to name right now. I mean, not the biggest of which he's pardoned 1,100 people who've brutalized police officers
Right.
and probably has turned them into ICE agents, let's be real.
I really
Um,
think the
yeah.
Proud Boys have become ICE agents. Well, I'm going to read. So, speaking of, violence, on a personal level, we had, Rob Reiner and his wife who were murdered in their own home, and right now they have their son in custody who had some troubled issues. I don't think he's been formally
No,
arrested or,
yes,
but
yes,
oh
yes.
yes, but he's in custody. But this is the tweet from Donald Trump on Rob Reiner. It says a very I just I just have to read it aloud.
Hmm.
A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with the mind-crippling disease known as, all caps, Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy, all in capitals, by his raging obsession of Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness. And with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. What are your thoughts on?
I think he's a sick, oatmeal-brained individual who, is long past the time for him to get help because he is just a sick human being who makes everything about himself, who makes everything about uh, people's loyalty or affinity to him. And that's the measure of their worth as a person. And so I think that he is just a sick human being. I said online today, I was contemplating whether I wanted to post it, but that's the only thing that gets me through moments like that where I have to hear his dribble and his bullshit and just the vile things that come out of his mind and his mouth is thinking about the celebrations when the time comes for him. That's
So
that's the only thing that gets me through those moments.
I I I don't really think about that. I just I I I'm like, oh my God, he's the leader of our country. Like that's what I keep thinking. Like we chose this man to run our country. This man is the leader of the, as we call it, the leader of the free world. Um, and what gets me about this comment, there's many things that get me about this comment. But first of all, he attributes Rob Reiner's death to Trump deranged system, which is fucked up. But then he goes off and like then he brings it to another level where he says he drove people crazy, that and then he starts talking about his great record that it surpassed and its greatness in the time of the golden age. I'm like, what the fuck? The golden age? Like, I'm laughing. I'm thinking about when we talk about the Roman Empire and the golden age, I'm like, this man is crazy. Like, he says that he talks about this man. All right, look, I I can understand if you didn't like Rob Reiner, okay? Because he did. Politically, you guys were at opposite ends. No, whatever. But when you say that he died because of Trump syndrome, and and then you start bringing in your apparent false track record about how you've surpassed things, it's like, what the fuck? You're a crazy man. You're a
Well, he's
crazy man.
Well, yeah, well, he could only hope, he would only among his faithful cult worshippers, will he have the kind of grief and outpouring of love that Rob Reiner and his wife do. Because Rob Reiner and his wife are, I don't know his wife so much, but I know,
I don't talk about
yeah,
that. I don't talk
yeah.
about that because No, I don't because I won't talk about that. Um, I talk about what he did, and that's it.
Well,
I'm not talking about what ifs. I'm talking about what he said today. And and that's and the fact of the matter is he's blaming this man's death on the fact that on something about him. It's disgusting.
well,
It's
yeah,
absolutely disgusting.
it is. Well, I just want to, talk about Rob Reiner himself for the moment. And Rob Reiner was a really good example. I'm talking about from way back in the All in the Family days, and especially now when we have these toxic bro podcasts in the manosphere, he was a really good example of liberal and empathetic masculinity that I think is really missing today. He was the quintessential liberal back then, arguing with the father-in-law.
The meathead.
Yeah, and he was so good in that, and he was of course a brilliant director and producer. I'm so sad about the way that things have ended for him. Like, because initially when the reports came in, then they said that people were found at his home. I was like, when they said it was a 78-year-old man, I knew it was him, and I had hoped that if something terrible had happened, maybe it was a more natural cause, but then his wife as well, which was really terrible.
Well, we don't know. I mean, his son has been captured. We don't know yet what's happened in regards to, but here you have um, three different types of violence um, in this country that resulted to, death. You had a mass shooting, like, um, at a university, and then you had a mass shooting at a beach directed towards a specific group, and then you have a personal somebody murdered, maybe possibly by your own family member. Um, and if I don't really want to speculate if the son killed, but what I wanted to say is there are I've remember like a week ago there was like a deli owner in Long Island and his son killed the mother and father. It happened
Vaguely.
like it was like in like, like it was in Long Island. It was like a father, they had like an Italian deli and they owned it for like a couple of like for most of their lives and they were working and their son who had a trouble, came in. It it's not the first time I've heard where family members, they didn't get their way and like um and
Something
they
just snapped. Something just snapped.
snaps and then they resort to this type of violence where you kill somebody. Um and we that has to do with some form of mental illness and we're just not putting our money in our mental illness and it's just going to get worse. Um And I thought about when, if that was Rob Reiner's son who actually did kill him, I was thinking of that couple just a week ago, like in New York City, whose son, and his son like was sitting outside with the bloody hands,
Mhm.
like he did it and he's like, oh, I did it. And then what about the kid on Staten Island? Remember the kid on Staten Island who killed his mother's boyfriend in
Oh,
West Brighton?
decapitated. Yeah, right
Yeah,
down the street. Yeah.
what like what
I don't know what possesses people. I honestly don't know. Um,
I get pissed, but
yeah.
like take a drink.
Yeah, something, yeah. So there's plenty of dispensaries now. Smoke a joint. I mean, whatever.
Exactly.
And
Meditate.
yeah,
Like people relax,
but I,
relax.
but I also
I made
think
a
I
I
also
made a
think
comment on someone's social media that and a few people didn't like I guess what I said. It wasn't nothing. I just asked a question actually, and they were, implying that I was digging up like racism. And I'm like, why would I want someone to be racist? Simply asking a question. And then someone said, you should be slapped. Like, really? That's your reaction? Like I should be slapped? And I was like, fuck you, like
well, it was well online. I think makes. violence. I think it makes online video games, I sound like I'm 80 years old here, but online video games, I think, desensitize, particularly young males, to violence.
Right. Or you can
And,
hide behind it because I
yeah,
went and looked at who that person was, and of course, it was a private account, and I didn't know, I couldn't see who they were.
it was probably a
And
bot.
and I didn't engage either. I'm like, I'm not going to dignify your response, your stupid thing with a response. So it
Well,
was like
yeah.
I asked a question, and if you didn't like it, I'm sorry, but
Well, I think I was listening to a podcast and Kara Swisher was talking about a documentary she's working on about longevity, like what causes people to live longer. And, of course, it was always the diet, exercise, blah, blah, blah. But also a big thing was, social support and community. That's really lacking in a lot of young men, particularly a lot of their lives. And Scott Galloway, who's her podcast co-host for Pivot, wrote an excellent book for Notes on Being a Man and about, what men
well,
can do to get out of the slump that they're in.
who's emerging? Who's that racist kid that's out? That kid that hates everybody?
Nick Fuentes.
Yes, like who is this Nat? Like, sorry, he's not good
He's not
for
good for young
society.
men.
No.
Not good for young men, but yet, figures on the right like Donald Trump, who had dinner with him and Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago, and Tucker Carlson have legitimized him. And so I think, and he actually admitted a few days ago that he's a virgin. Is it any wonder? Like, who's gonna give it up to him? I mean, like, you know.
You know what? I don't care who's going to give it up to him. You know
Oh
what?
wait, no, I'm just trolling, but
But
I think I'm just trolling, and I like to
but
troll
pe
people like
but
that.
people, I was watching somebody's videos that caused me to kind of make this comment or ask this question from it's kind of gone a little bit viral on Staten Island. And I started watching it for a minute and then I was like, all right, walk away. This is stupid. Like this is like complaining to complain. Like, I don't know. Um, and you can doom scroll your way to Tuesday, um, if you keep watch, but people are getting attention this way and don't give them attention. I don't give, and uh, just simply don't give this type of negativity attention. And people like Nick Fuentes,
Well,
eh,
that's actually, part of one of the fractures on the right, and we'll switch after this really dark chapter of this
I
podcast
know,
to
but
something more fun. But this is actually, I would say, that's actually causing a fracture on the right because Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his podcast, and people on the right are saying other people on the right, like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, a few others, the Heritage Foundation,
well, let's give props to some of the Republicans today who called out the president
yeah,
on that commenting. There were a couple of Republicans who, Massey, I think, was
yeah,
one. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene as well. There was about, I don't know, I didn't see all I saw kind of they were up on the screen. I didn't
some
catch
some,
who.
some right-wing commentators too. I know Sage Steele, who's a big right-wing commentator. She also,
Said
uh, yeah.
that's uncalled for. So good for them. Thank you for, you know, calling it out. Um,
And
and
this is after months of, if you if you looked at a picture,
credit.
oh, I know, but this is after months. I'm just talking about the right in general. I'm not talking about those people specifically, but I'm talking about, after months of if you look at a picture of Charlie Kirk the wrong way, they burn you at the stake and get you fired and everything else.
Yeah. Well, he's not, I don't like, yeah. I'd rather focus on people that are doing things like let's talk about the dad briefs. This is a guy on social media. He's Be Kind, Wash Your Behind. I don't know. I think I might have talked about him a few times. He's
Yes.
a dad who makes a recipe and talks about democracy. And, he's a father, loves his wife. I think he's a great example of masculinity.
Mhm.
Like, talk more about him, promote him, share him. I'm not going to share Charlie Kirk stuff. I'm not going to share Nick Fuentes stuff. I'm not going to give him any platform. There's these guys from England. They're like dancing dads. What are their name? I think I've shared them before. They they're all about promoting mental health, and they're like dads who like, get down on it, and they do this little choreograph, um, and they're from Brighton. They're wonderful, and it's all about promoting mental health and being goofy and being positive. Like those are people I want to promote.
Well, and I think, there are some others too. Like I love Scott Galloway, who's Kara's partner in Pivot. I think he's a really positive role model for men. I saw them recently at the King's Theater in Brooklyn, and I got a copy of the book, and I've read it. It was really good, and he's terrific about, what are the problems that young men face, and what are some productive ways out of it. So I think that that's also a really uh, somebody who's a positive role model for men as well. Um,
Out
and
of Puff Daddies, that's their names. Out of Puff Daddies, right? No Puff Daddy. Don't promote Puff Daddy.
no
Promote out
Diddy.
of Puff Daddies.
Yeah, no
Out of
Diddy.
Puff Daddies. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, there was that song, No Diggity, No Diddy, or
yeah,
No
yeah.
Diddy. Um, and well, just after all that darkness, there are some things that are giving me hope these days, I think, politically. Now, last year, if you listen to our podcast from last year, I was preparing for a full-on Trump autocracy, and we still might be on our way there. But I
We're in a
think,
golden age. We're in a
well,
golden age.
well, according to the Steele dossier, he does like golden showers, and so I think that not that that matters, but. Uh, I think the weakness, I think the reason why people felt comfortable, Republicans felt comfortable criticizing Trump over the his Rob Reiner response is because the Republicans, I think, sense weakness in Donald Trump right now. His approval is lower than it's ever been, particularly on issues that he was strong on. He was strong on the economy. Now it's 31%, which is a record low. Uh,
Why would, yeah, he hasn't done anything.
Yeah, but his political power among Republicans up until recently was unshakable. And I think part of the reason you see Marjorie defecting, she made a critical distinction on 60 Minutes. When she was asked by Leslie Stahl if she was MAGA or America First, she said, "I'm America First, not MAGA. MAGA is
Right.
his
Then
thing."
she lost me when she kind of attacked Leslie, like
Yeah.
when they said something about, some of the stuff that she has promoted, and she's like, "You do it." I'm like, "Oh God, all right." There she is. There's the Marjorie Taylor Greene that I,
That we all loathe.
yes, we all love. So
We all know and loathe. And so yeah, so I think you're seeing some of these defections, most notably, and I have to give credit to these state Senate Republicans in Indiana who fought back Trump's attempts at gerrymandering their map mid-decade after extreme pressure. And I don't mean just a nasty Truth Social post. I mean, there was one state senator who said her grandson, who was like 12 years old, was getting nasty, violent, threatening texts over this. And so, really horrible things, really terrible things, unimaginable pressure. And they fought back. 21 of them joined the 10 Democrats in the Indiana state legislature to vote it down. And so I have to give props to them. I have to give props. I hear it was Mike and Karen Pence behind the scenes calling those people and telling them to not do this and to stick, if they were voting no, to stick with it. And I think that's quite significant because when Texas and Greg Abbott, says when Trump says jump and they ask how high, it's interesting that Indiana stood on business and stood on principle and said no.
well, I'll have to give props locally to La Colmena and the organizations that have this weekend did the shop in Port Richmond. I wanted to go, but I had the flu. So, but I'm going to still go down to Port Richmond. And, to fellow Staten Islanders, that Port Richmond's, was hit hard because, people are afraid to go out and shop. They're afraid that, with the ice coming in and, they pulled somebody out of a coffee shop, you know. So, you know, I'm not brown or black. I'm not getting picked up. And so, go down and support local businesses in Port Richmond. So kudos to them for organizing 2 days. They had a holiday fair on Sunday, and then there was a shop on Saturday to shop the streets of Port Richmond. So go down to Port Richmond and support, or there are, when we think about the famous streets on Staten Island that have great local businesses like Forest Avenue. Go down and support Forest Avenue. Go down and support Port Richmond Avenue, Newdorp Lane. These are areas that you
St.
know
George, St. George,
and
yeah.
they have unique stores. It's not like, you're going down and hitting a Best Buy, you know. You're hitting a mom and pop local store. So go down and support them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
that's where my hope is, to
yeah.
see local neighborhoods, people organizing and, combating ICE and helping raise the communities on a local level. So good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've never thought I would say this, but I have faith in our justice system now too. Uh, because for the third time, the Trump Justice Department has failed to indict Letitia James. And grand juries are saying no, which I think, I never envisioned, like in a situation like we're in now, that grand juries would be the front line where we could say no and we wouldn't pursue political enemies. And uh, grand juries are saying no, not just to that, but Sandwich Man was not indicted, the one who threw the sandwich at the troop. And so we're seeing pushback there too. We're seeing pushback just around the country in different ways, particularly around ICE, not just here in Staten Island, but also in Chicago, in all sorts of other places. I'm listening right now to Rachel Maddow's new podcast about Japanese internment, and it's interesting the parallels between uh, what's happening right now as it relates to ICE and immigrants and to Japanese Americans during World War II. And so uh, she was saying, you don't, at times like this, people don't tap you on the shoulder and say, you're going to be the one to make a difference, or you have to be the one to do it. People just find it within themselves to stand up
Because
and,
it's
and
wrong.
defend
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
did they had the hearings this week where Christy Nome was at the hearings this week, and she got grilled.
And
Good.
she left early because she couldn't take the heat. And so,
Because she's wrong, because she knows that they are not, they're not, you know what? If you see that ICE commercial that she posts, the first face you see is a man with a full face tattoo. Like, this is the face of the people that we're going after. Bullshit, you know?
mhm.
You're not going after. Maybe you did go after them, but now you're just going after brown and black people. And and you're going after people who shouldn't be deported at all. Like, you're going after US citizens. Um, and what's crazy is, under due process, you're like, where's the right to a phone call, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well,
we'll talk more about that on our next episode. When
yeah,
we talk,
because
we're
yeah,
gonna
we
talk.
we're going to bring some folks who were critical to, and perhaps Sarah herself, although I'm not confirmed on that yet, but there were people who were instrumental in really in Sarah getting Sarah released. Sarah's that young girl from
Yeah.
Port Richmond who now lives in New Jersey. She spent 35 days in ICE detention, and so now she's out. And so we're going to I hope to talk to her directly if she's available, because I do want to see, because she talked about at a press conference for the Episcopal Diocese of New York, she talked about the conditions she was in there. And so
Yes.
I'm really interested in hearing more about that, and also from her attorney about the process of what it
There's
was
a
like.
lot of it's coming on my feed a lot, I guess, because I'm sharing it a lot. But I'm getting a lot of firsthand accounts, or people are talking about their abduction experience and about what they did not receive and the types of conditions. Um, and there, it's it's shameful. So, but it's also we want to maybe we should wrap this up because my wheezing is starting to go. So
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
well,
waiting.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in definitely all of those aspects of it too. The only, things that I've heard more broadly were from the more high profile cases like Mahmoud Khalil and Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Their lawyers said they had a very difficult time reaching them. And actually, the lawyer that was working with Sarah said that it was a Herculean effort to try and get her out too, partly because of all the roadblocks and obstacles that they put up that any other administration probably would not have. And so, we'll monitor that. But on that note, this is the Left and Forgotten Bro podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
And I'm Nancy Richards. We'll see you soon.